This is one thing that's bothered me about the SNP for a very, very long time, right? It's the whole we hate Westminster, we hate England, we have to pay them money, but they give us a little bit of money back. And we have to abide by their laws and their rules. And when it comes to voting on said legislation, the Scottish people are overwhelmingly outnumbered. So the stuff that is directly against Scotland's best interests always get voted in because Scotland's only about 6 million people, whereas England, I think, is about 68 million. I think it's 60 or 68 million. I don't remember. So basically, when it comes to votes, the Scots don't do that well. And they think the solution to that is to rejoin the EU, where all of that exact same stuff would happen. It's never made any sense to me. And see the sheer amount of Scottish nationalists. Like, whenever I'm out, whenever I go out, like, to a bar or something, the only time I go there is if it's a friend's birthday or, like, a wedding or something like that, and you always get a bunch of people who are like, I'm a Scottish nationalist. And it's like, all right, I believe in open borders. Yeah. Or it's like, oh, should we rejoin the EU? Yeah. I'm sick of what Westminster's doing to us. I would rather the EU was doing it to us than ever. Those people, like, see Scottish nationalists, they're not nationalists. They're not, by any stretch. But the thing is even if Scotland did get its independence, it doesn't meet the criteria to join the EU. So it doesn't meet the basic criteria. SNP mocked for new fantasy plan to rejoin the EU. We literally don't meet the most basic stuff to actually join. Foreign policy expert Professor Azim Ibrahim told GB News that an independent Scotland wouldn't even fit the basic criteria for EU membership. Try telling that to SNP supporters, though. The SNP has been mocked for its new plan to rejoin the EU, with a commentator dismissing it as a fantasy. The foreign policy expert told GB News the paper shows the SNP no longer has any ideas on how an independent Scotland will function. That's one thing about the SNP as well. They are independence at any cost and will figure the shit out afterwards. If you talk to them, they don't have a game plan. They don't have a game plan. And that's one thing, if you talk to SNP supporters and people that believe in, like, the fake independence that the SNP want, because see, for part of the EU, we're not independent. We're not, right? It doesn't matter what. Well, actually, we get a vote and we get a veto and we get. How about we have none of that and we just be an actual independent country? How about that? Yeah, we'll kind of be controlled by the EU, but we get, like, a veto. It's like, oh wow, a veto. Yeah, how did that work out with Article 13? How'd that work out? Yeah, the vetoes didn't fucking matter then. You get to veto the stupid stuff, you don't get to veto the stuff that all the club would like to put in. It's just nonsense. The SNP's new plan to rejoin the EU was included in the party's Building a New Scotland report series. The Scottish Government said it would use a tried and tested route to EU membership, relying on Article 49. Speaking ahead of the report's publication, the SNP's Constitution Secretary, Angus Robertson, dismissed Brexit as disastrous, because of course they would, calling instead for an alternative direction for Scotland, which will detail our shared European values. I can already tell you right now, we have a very different idea of what European values are, I can assure you. Robertson said, independent countries like Scotland are wealthier and fairer than the UK. No, we're not. No, we're not. No, we're not at all. Wealthier, definitely fucking not. Everyone's like, the oil, the oil, the oil. The oil, yeah, it's a nice big boon, but it is nowhere near as much as you think it is. We technically sort of own the oil, but we've licensed it out to private companies and contractors. So they own a portion of the oil that they bring up because that is in the contract. You're going to renegotiate the contract? Yeah, good luck with that. After you go independent, yeah. I'm pretty sure there's clauses in the contracts where the oil companies went, yeah, we'll totally, like, make the platforms and extract the oil and stuff. But in the contract, I believe it says if you get independence, none of that changes. You can't change the contract. The contract remains. And in that contract, England gets some of the oil. So, hey ho, not much is going to change there. So with all our resources and talents, why not Scotland? Fairer? Scotland is not fairer. We've got the highest taxes in all of the UK. Everyone's like, there's no jobs in Scotland. Why are there no jobs? Because it literally saves so much more money if you base your factory or plant or whatever it is you're doing down in England. Legitimately, it saves you so much more money because the tax is cheaper. That's one thing that Scotland did, was drive up the taxes as soon as that was passed over to them. What was it called again? I forget the phrase for handing over powers. It's used all the time as well, and I'm amazed that I've forgotten it. But basically, like, tax is less in England. So why would you open your factory in Scotland when you could open it in England and pay less tax? Oh, look at all these problems, taxation costs. But it's fine. It's free money from the government. I give the government £20 and I get £2 worth of service. Socialism, yay! Actually, it's bloody stupid. Right, so fairer as well. No, Scotland's the most authoritarian part of the United Kingdom. Big time, big time. Like, we jail people for jokes and tweets and memes all the time. We also passed the Scottish hate crime bill where you can get up to 7 years in prison just for possessing offensive memes on your phone, which Ireland is getting right now. I've seen the new Ireland one that's coming out. It's almost word for word what was done in Scotland. You're getting the exact same thing. It's not been applied right now, but it will be, because what they do is laws are much easier to get rid of in the few years after they've been put in place. Because there's not really been any, what's it called, statutes or something like that, or precedent set via that law, which other cases would end up relying on. So what they do is they sit there and let it fester for about like 6, 7, 8 years, and then they start using it. The same thing happened with the Communications Act of 2003. That was brought in 2003, but it wasn't until about 2012-13 that it really started getting applied. Because then after it's been in place for so long, it's much harder to get rid of it. So wealthier and fairer, lie. Like, just immediate, provable fucking lie. Both Labour and the Tories are happy to impose a disastrous hard Brexit on Scotland, which the UK government's own fiscal watchdog thinks will cut national income by 4% compared with EU membership. Your taxes already cut Scottish income by way higher than that. Like it already did. People are paying way more taxes in Scotland than they do in England, so you did that. But when it comes to you getting money, it's different. Yeah, of course, fucking typical politicians. Wiping around 100 billion from the UK economy and leaving people on average earnings £1,300 worse off. Where's that £1,300 going? It's taxes. It's taxes. Jesus Christ, actually look into what you're fucking talking about. Today, the Scottish Government is setting out an alternative direction for Scotland, which will detail our shared European values, how we will trade with the rest of the UK and the EU, the immense value to Scotland of being a European member state, because you've kind of realised that it'll be very, very difficult to survive on our own, so we need the big bucks coming in from the EU, and in return they get to essentially control our country and we become a vassal state of the EU, thereby not actually having independence. That's the thing. It's amazing. Like, see, SNP supporters in the SNP, the entire purpose of their being is independence this, independence that, and it's not even independence. It's fucking incredible. And the contribute, blah, blah, blah. Where was I? The immense value to Scotland of being a European Union member state and the contribution we would make to achieving the EU's goals. What are the EU's goals again? Well, the EU are building an army. They're supporting the WEF and all that, so there you are. That answers that question. There will, of course, be challenges and the tried and tested accession process to go through, but we can escape the costs of Brexit and build a new and better relationship with our friends on these islands, taking advantage of new opportunities as part of the EU and the world's largest single market, which is 7 times the size of the UK. We made up a fucking hell of a whack of that market, by the way. Reacting to the report, Professor Azim Ibrahim told GB News it shows the SNP no longer have any ideas on how an independent Scotland will function on currency, economy, defence, etc., so are creating fantasy papers on I think that's meant to be rejoining the EU. Yeah, they don't have a plan. See, it's a case of, because we've got so much welfare in Scotland, where's the money going to come from to pay for all of that after we leave the UK? Now, I'm pro-Indy, I'm pro-independence. I think the more countries we break up, the better. And see, when you're in a secessionist nation, you can make a much easier argument of being a secessionist yourself. That's why when Shetland and Orkney came out and going, yeah, we're thinking of leaving Scotland if it gets independent, more fucking power to you. I hope it happens everywhere, all the way down to people's front gardens. That would be wonderful. But yeah, they literally don't have a plan. So see how we pay out massive amounts of welfare in Scotland. See, if we become independent, we can't afford that. Immediately, we can't afford that. Right? Scotland is not bringing enough money to pay all of the welfare, especially when it comes to migrants getting put up in all these big lavish hotels and getting free TVs and getting all of that stuff. All the social programs, the NHS and stuff like that, Scotland literally can't afford it. Like, so I forget what it was. I forget who it was that done it, but basically someone calculated all of it with as much publicly available information as they could, because governments like to hide the finances so that you don't see how much they're pocketing. And basically, we would be running a massive fucking deficit. It would be massive. But what would happen is after that point, the government would collapse, which is why I'm pro-Indy. But anyway, there is little chance Scotland could even meet the basic economic criteria to rejoin the EU, even if it wanted to, and they will have to join a long line for countries ahead of it. And that's something that's been known since day one, since like the first referendum, because they were like, oh, if Scotland leaves the UK, technically it would be leaving the European Union as well, but then they would like renegotiate. And back then, this was before all the fuckery. This was 2014. That was back when they were like, no, you can't rejoin. You don't meet the basic criteria. Right. So this was before, you know, a lot of the nonsense. But yeah, we were told, no, you can't join. You don't meet the requirements. But oh, fuck it, I'll save it for the end. The SNP know the independence dream is over and they are just going through the motions now. Well, that's the problem. I mean, independence absolutely could be delivered if we didn't have a bunch of left-wing lunatics promising something that isn't even independence. Like, that's the problem. Oh, the independence dream is over. No, actual independence, that could still be achievable. But the fake independence that the SNP is offering, no, it's not, because loads of people, even SNP supporters who are friends of mine, are kind of like, yeah, I'm not. It's not really independence, is it? And I'm like, bro, my brother in Christ, that's what I've been telling you for like 5 fucking years now. The report will also suggest that the party will exploit Labour's plans for Brexit, which are expected to bring the UK closer to the EU. The SNP's report will argue that Sir Keir Starmer's planned renegotiation of the EU trade deal would result in the need for fewer physical checks on goods, making Brexit less of a problem for the SNP. Earlier this year, Starmer confirmed he is planning to renegotiate the UK's relationship with the EU if he is elected. The Labour leader says he wants a closer trading relationship with the bloc, dismissing the 2020 deal struck by Boris Johnson as not a good deal. And it wasn't. Boris absolutely fumbled the ball on that one. We should have just fucking left. Fuck yous then. The deal is up for review in 2025. Starmer said he owes it to his children to strike a new partnership with Brussels and rebuild the relationship. Starmer said the 2025 renewal date is an important moment to reset relations with the bloc. The leader of the... I love that phrase. Well... What kind of documentation do you usually see that word getting used in? The leader of the opposition, who is nearly 20 points ahead of the Conservative Party in the polls, told the Financial Times, I do think we can have a closer trading relationship as well. That's subject to further discussion. Speaking about the current deal, he added, I think there's more that can be achieved across the board. Now, why is Labour leading so much against the Tories? Because let's be fucking honest, they're not that much fucking different. The key number one thing that everyone is pissed off about is the cost of living crisis and immigration. Neither party fucking cares. They're just fucking it up at every fucking avenue, every corner. Right? Neither party cares about it, so everyone's just going, fuck it. The immigration thing will never get sorted. When it comes to immigration, Labour and Tories, no fucking different. No fucking different. Labour are just more honest about it. But when it comes to the cost of living crisis, Labour are going to steal a bunch of money from hard-working people and give it to people who don't work. So, yeah, you fuck up the economy and you get everybody to lose their jobs, socialism starts to look really good. It's why they purposefully fuck up the economy and purposefully make everyone lose their jobs. Starmer continued, almost everyone recognises the deal that Johnson struck is not a good deal. It's far too thin. As we go into 2025, we will attempt to get a much better deal for the UK. It's not yet known whether the EU will be open to a renegotiation of the deal. Now, even though Scotland doesn't meet the basic criteria, see just as an absolute fuck you to England, the EU will let us in. That's my prediction. See, even though we don't meet the criteria, see just to wave a big massive middle finger at England, the EU will let us in. That's what I see happening. And then we're going to have wonderful things like migrant hotels absolutely fucking everywhere and companies packing up and leaving Scotland because the tax rates are going to go up when they could just easily move down to England. And then nobody's going to have any fucking jobs and then they're going to go, oh, we need to pay all this welfare. So the taxes will go up even higher and then the whole government will collapse. And when the whole government collapses, maybe that'll be the point where all of these, see, everyone's like, Scotland's predominantly fucking left wing. Yeah, it's because basically the Tories are our thanks Obama. Everyone's like, the Tories, the Tories, the Tories, the Tories. Oh, everything bad happening in Scotland is the Tories and the right wing. My brother in Christ, the right wing has literally never been in power in Scotland, right? See, for like decades now, we've had like Labour or SNP. Labour or SNP, that's what we've had. They are the ones in charge, right? And everyone's like, oh, these bloody right-wingers and their tax rates. Nope, that was Scotland. That was SNP and Labour that fucking did that, right? So basically, nobody's learning their lesson. So what we have to do, if the child doesn't understand that the hob is burny, let the fucker touch it and let him learn the hard way, right? So that's the point I'm at now. You want your uncontrolled mass immigration, you want your higher taxes, you want capital flight out of the country because the taxes are that shit. Absolutely no problem, you fucking have it, because I gain either way. Basically, the two things are going to happen. One, the government is going to absolutely fucking collapse because it can't fucking afford any of the shit. And everyone's going to realise, welfare state, open borders. You can have one or the other, you cannot fucking have both, right? And secondly, everyone will finally learn their fucking lesson that these policies are extremely fucking damaging and they don't work. They fail everywhere that they have been fucking tried. 1 in 10 city councils is about to file for bankruptcy because they literally can't fucking afford it. And that's when we are in the UK. Right? This shit doesn't work. But see, if you don't want to listen to people telling you it doesn't work, whatever, I will sit back and let you touch the fucking hob.